And is he at work or back?
What's that? Call, I do that for you.
Yeah, that's what we're doing next week. My youngest son's birthday is 18th. Mine's the 22nd, so we're just planning on staying home and spending some time together.
Well, that's a nice box. I saw the box though, really interested about what she does. Sarah said she, giving. So is your office?
We didn't know who was vibrating how. I opened your plan and took a copy of the page. Yeah, this is what, you know, this is that means. She called me at 7:01 a.m. Sorry about you.
They made it by Sarah. Yeah. Just kind of like.
Sarah, I think that's Sarah's. Who wants this?
So you're doing, like, antiques all
If everyone could take a seat, I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Yep.
Okay, if we could have everyone rise for the pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's take a moment of silence. Okay. Take it. All right, the first section in the agenda is the advisory board. We'll start with the treasurer report. If Sarah would like to present the treasurer, I'm sorry, the secretary report, you can go ahead.
Hopefully everybody picked up a copy of our last meeting minutes on their way in. I know some just kind of got through the door, so I don't know if you've had a chance to review them. The board would take a minute, review them for accuracy.
I need to, motion to accept the minutes.
I make the motion.
I second it.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. All in favor? Carries. All right, and then the treasurer report. Go ahead, Sarah. Okay.
As of July 31st, we have a balance in our advisory board account of $7,960.45. For those who may not be familiar with our advisory board, we use that money to help offset, costs if a child in foster care needs, wants senior pictures done, or wants to go to prom and maybe doesn't have a dress or the funds to rent a tux. We can use that money to help offset some of those costs so that they can enjoy some of those activities. So I just need a motion for that.
Motion to accept it? And
That motion.
I did, okay.
second. So we're gonna move right into our needs-based, budget and plan. I'm gonna pass it over to Krista. However, I would, ask that everyone refrain and respectfully refrain from, questions and comments until your allotted time. We're gonna start with, after the plan is presented, we're gonna move right into our board's questions and comments, and then we'll open it up to the public. We do ask that everyone in the public that has questions or comments, we're gonna allot you 3 minutes to state them, and then we're gonna move on to the next person. Okay, so Krista, I'm sorry. Sure. The Tioga County Department of Human Service Advisory Board will facilitate the public hearing regarding the 2022 and 2023 Children and Youth Implication Plan and Needs-Based Plan from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. The purpose of these hearings is to inform the public and solicit stakeholder input. During the public hearing, any member of the public is invited to provide testimony verbally or in writing regarding the plan. I now pass that to Krista to present her plan, please.
Thank you. This year's plan was very similar, in the questions that the state was asking to last year. I'm gonna start with the executive summary. They asked how, our county is still being impacted by COVID. During the past year, we have had to go remote a couple of times, because of the amount of, COVID that was going through our office. We have had many staff have to quarantine, and work remote several different times this year. We still continue to, practice our safety precautions and, talk with our staff about being cautious when they're out in the field and working with families. So, 3 of the major challenges that we have faced within this past year has been, ongoing issues with truancy, having limited resources for mental health and drug and alcohol services, and dealing with our staff vacancies. My other managers are here and they will present more on some of these more specific issues, because we did write adjustments to help out with some of these issues. Things that Tioga County is doing well is we continue to provide quality work, quality services to the residents in the county. This past year, our county did not have any citations during our licensing for safety issues regarding children. We have seen a decrease in the number of children entering into foster care. We have been utilizing kinship care more. Tioga County is a family engagement initiative county, and so we work really hard with the families up front when the reports initially come in our intake department, and identify supports and needs that the children and the families have. And then as the case progresses, the ongoing workers, the in-home workers, they continue to work with those families. If a case needs to go to court, then we are continuing to work with those families and identifying those supports. So eventually the family can lean on those supports and not rely heavily on case management. Part of that is holding crisis rapid response meetings. And these are meetings that are thrown together and initially when a crisis arises in a family. So the meetings can happen within 24 hours of that crisis happening, up to 72 hours. And we report that to the state on how many crisis rapid response meetings that we that we have had success in keeping kids out of care during our crisis rapid response meetings, because we have families stepping forward and wanting to help out their family. Some will petition the court and take custody themselves just to keep the kids out of foster care. We have also had a significant amount of children finding permanency. This past year, we have had a lot of adoptions, several SPLCs, which is finding permanent legal custodianship with their identified supports. And the other thing, our Drug Endangered Children's Alliance has been very active this past year. And Michelle is going to talk about that more. But we are getting our name out in the community more, and we are continuing to have our Deaf Alliance meetings. Sierra, do you want to talk about the probation?
Sure. With juvenile probation, our challenges this year were finding detention centers. Some may not know that Pennsylvania has been shutting down several detention centers and secure placements across the state. We are diligently working with trying to secure at least a bed in Ohio. That is the closest one that we can find that would house one of our juveniles if and when a juvenile needs to be detained. So I know that JCJC has been trying to work with other counties and to facilitate some kind of agreement with detention centers. However, we all have our own struggles in that. So that is one of our biggest challenges right now, and we continue to find other placements for these kids as new crimes are committed and they're adjudicated on those crimes. But that's one of our biggest challenges this year. That's it.
Brett, would you like to talk about?
Yeah, I'm Brett Weisskopf, intake manager for the county. So in regards to my numbers and trends that we've seen, we have an increase in children and families served this past fiscal year. And I think that's a result from like restrictions with COVID. People getting some of the trends, same as like last year, we have an increase in truancy reports. Just children don't want to go back to school. Most of the kids that I've seen, it's more of like the teenage kids that don't want to go back to school. We have domestic violence, drug and alcohol issues. Another issue is like the mental health and behavioral health of the parents and the children, and the lack of resources that we have. So like children and parents are on wait lists, and there's long wait lists for treatment. Some don't want to follow through with like their medication, stuff like that. So it's a struggle. Also with intake, we see a lot of the families that repeated referrals. So families that have history with us. So they could eventually been closed out, but they come right back in. So that's a lot of our reports too. And those families are difficult to work with at times because they know the system a little bit better, so they know they don't have to sign paperwork, they don't have to let you in their house, so it's challenging there as well. We had a slight increase in our CPS numbers. That was by like 2 or 3 reports. We saw several cases where children are being exposed to marijuana. We had a couple of parents that actually admitted that they gave the child marijuana because this child was already smoking it, so they wanted to manage it. We had some with THC gummies, and we have 2 kids that unfortunately drank meth water. So we've seen like an increase with drug-related issues with abuse and neglect, where we have caregivers that aren't necessarily doing everything we need to do to provide the nutritional needs of their babies. So
Michelle and I'm Jenny Fair, Michelle Rigobuto's down there. We are the ongoing managers, so we are in charge of cases if they make it outside of Brett's intake department. So Brett has cases for, his people have them for up to 60 days, and if they determine they need ongoing services, they come to us. We are seeing the same kind of trends. We actually had less families and less children this year that we worked with. But what we have seen in the last few years is the cases are more intense. We don't have the cases that we used to have with Juvenile Homes or licer things. We're having cases with extensive drug use, lots of domestic violence. So they may be somewhat lower cases, but the actual cases themselves are much more intense, much greater needs. More time consuming, yes. Several large sibling groups this year. Some of those cases then end up as placement cases. As Krista talked about, we do the CRR meetings to try to prevent that, but sometimes we can't. So our placements this year, we put less kids into care than in the past, and we exited more this year than we put in. But a lot of the kids that entered care this year were sibling groups. We had sibling groups of up to 6 kids at one time, so that can kind of skew numbers as well. Every kid obviously counts, but sometimes it looks like you have a large increase, and you do, that sometimes that can only be a few families. We've had several children this year with very complex needs. We've had to use complex case reviews this year, which is a meeting that involves us, our regional people, state people from several different disciplines. It involves the intellectual disabilities world, ODP, OMSAS, CCBH, and us. And we have weekly meetings trying to all work together with people all over the state, trying to find appropriate placement and appropriate care for some of our kids. I think that's it for now.
So I have a couple here. My name is Trisha Tanner, and I'm the placement liaison for the county. I am the supervisor for foster care, and I also engage a lot with the courts. I supervise the Title IV-E unit as well as the paralegals. A couple of things that we have noticed is, like Krista had stated, a large increase in kinship homes, and to state that we, being a FEI county, we do have put in those different meetings into play, like the CRRs to identify family, and we have been able to, like Jenny I think said, stop from removing the children or taking custody, because those meetings have been able to identify family to take custody of the children. So for foster care in general, we have seen an increase, like I said, in kinship homes. I think the numbers here, quite a few numbers, but we had increased by quite a bit for days for getting our home studies completed within a 60-day time frame. After that 60 days, if a child is in an emergency kinship placement, they get non-reimbursed until the home study is complete. So we have had a slight, actually I think we had an increase in those homes of non-payment due to a couple of kinship service providers were not on board completely 100%, I think, with getting their paperwork done in time. They felt there was stronger needs for, doing their own thing, not realizing that it's very serious to get the home study done in a certain amount of time. We had one that had gone for an extensive amount of time due to the home needing a couple of renovations completed, which we had utilized some housing funding to be able to get that completed for them. But most of the ones that the days had increased had dealt with sibling groups. So if you were to take the number that it increased over this fiscal year, most of them were sibling groups, so we could look at it as like half, but because of the days, obviously for both, it's increased quite a bit. But foster care continues to basically assist them with anything that we can to try to get them to that 60-day mark or sooner, because it is a lot for these kinship homes, especially because some of the children being removed are being placed in a home that, you know, the dynamic is the same as their home, but it's less, I don't even know the word I'm trying to look for, but it's less of a concern, yeah, because you don't have that threat of abuse, and they are able to provide for the children. So we definitely strive to use kinship more than using foster homes. We did get an increase, or we did see an increase in regular resource homes as well. Not by much, but we have gotten a few due to the fact that we do utilize kinship more. And we have also to talk about adoptions. So the adoption numbers have been fabulous, giving these children permanency. We had 17 adoptions last year. We are projected to have another 17 this year. We had 8 that aged out of the 18 for the reimbursement. So 18 had come out, or 8 had come out, sorry. So we had 17 adoptions, 8 came out. This year we're projected at the same amount. So far I believe from January 1st we have had 12 adoptions, so finding permanency is definitely a very positive thing right now. A couple of other things that I have looked at, SPLC numbers have came down like maybe 1, I think, last fiscal year, but we are looking at doing projected out 3 this fiscal year.
Can we just wait until we're done with the plan? Thank you.
Do you want me to say what SPLC is? Is that what you were gonna say? Okay. So I also deal with the courts. We have maintained a very positive relationship with our judge. He does come here to meet with the staff and discuss, you know, what he sees in court, what he would like to see us improve on. We also do have our family engagement meetings where we have the team sit around and we discuss what we can do to improve that. We also have roundtable meetings. I believe those are quarterly. We continue to maintain a positive relationship with our legal team. We meet on Mondays for court preparation to just discuss with attorneys, you know, what's been going on, make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page before we go into court, so we know where the parents are, where the children are, what's happening there. And utilizing family finding for most of our like CRR meetings and all the other meetings that we have for the parents that have kids removed. We just try to put, you know, utilize family finding as much as we can to identify as many family members as we can, family or kinship. I think that is all I have.
All right, I'm Michelle Rigobuto. I am a manager at the agency for Northern Tioga, but I also spearhead the Drug Endangered Children Alliance. I presented to you guys, I think it was the last advisory board meeting, talked about what we've done with grant money that we received, and I will dabble in that in letting you guys know what I reported to the state in our plan. But our Drug Endangered Children Alliance continues to be super successful. We continue to have upwards of 100 different affiliates throughout the entire county, comprised of all the different disciplines that are working with children. This year, we maintained monthly meetings. We did as many as we could in person, switched to Zoom. I think our September meeting, we went back in person, and Judge Wheeler actually came and presented to us, talking to all the different disciplines about what's expected at court when you've been subpoenaed to come and talk to him about what's going on with the kids that they're working on. And I think we had another in person, then we went back to Zoom for a little bit. We decided to come back in person in May. We had a breakfast for our alliance, and we've been going every other month since then. My hope is that we build the attendance by not having it so frequently. We'll see how that goes. However, with that being said, every meeting we come to, everybody's always surprised at how many people are showing up. So we've never dwindled. We've always kept our numbers super high, and I feel like we have a really good relationship with any discipline that we need for our kids. And I can go into, they feel the same way as well. So I talked about that. I let them know that our key subjects this year have been truancy, mental health services, concerns for meth use, and the misuse of prescribed marijuana. I might sometimes have a different topic for a meeting, but we'd always end up back at that kind of a category. So that's what all of the different disciplines within the county are seeing as concerns. Because of how well we've been working together, we actually received a block grant to put money out into the community, to spread our name, let people know that we are here for them. We are willing to work together and learn from each other to best support the kids, and B, to do some pro-social activities for the kids. So I created a subcommittee based on every different discipline. So we had some school, some mental health, trying to think who all was in it, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, I think I had like 10 different people. We talked about how we were gonna spend this money, and then we supported different programs in the county, such as library programs, mental health fairs, karate, the skating rink in Tioga, yoga. We gave $500 to each of the pools to give free pool passes to the kids. Momentum Music did stuff. We were able to kind of spread it out amongst every area of the county. And like I presented with the PowerPoint last time, that was super well received. There's still activities being planned throughout. I think we paid for things right up until like January of next year. So it'd be kind of neat to be able to get that money again. But it was super well received from the community. They do want to thank everybody for that. So that leads me to, I always am tasked with having the DEC Alliance be our stakeholder component of our needs-based plan. So we have the meeting on July 14th. Everybody was invited to come attend the meeting with the purpose of telling us what their concerns are within the county. This meeting was different than the ones we've been doing in the past. I think I've been using them as a stakeholder meeting for 3 or 4 years. The first half an hour, our meetings are only an hour, but the first half an hour was only about strengths. And they kept saying how good our relationships are with each other, and that is, it truly is unheard of. If you guys think children and youth work well with law enforcement, and law enforcement is respectful to children and youth, and schools are working well with children and youth, and medical practices are working with children and youth, in other parts of the state, I'm telling you, it's not the case. We are privileged that we have this relationship. We have taken time before and presented to the directors of human services. We presented to school board people, and they're like, we don't work with children and youth. We don't work with each other. That is 100% not the case here. We've always said some of our strongest alliance members, and when I say alliance, I don't mean that, but for my staff to be able to work with the school is super strong. So it was really neat that they spent like 30 minutes talking about all of our strengths and never said a concern. So I had to bring them back. I'm like, I need to know what's your concerns. And it's nice when the discipline's concerns meet what we're seeing for the past year. And their concerns were truancy, the lack of mental health services, and being able to get mental health services in a timely manner. So we have the providers, but it's a very long wait list to get in. The misuse of medical marijuana, and also the proximity of mental health services to where you live. So for instance, Westfield, they would like to see mental health services in Westfield, instead of trying to find somebody for transportation. When a case is open with children and youth, by all means, we will drive them to where they need to go, but our goal is to close them. Therefore, it would be helpful if we had services in each area of the county. That's what their concerns were. Our plan is to keep moving forward. I did, notify the state that we will be going to bi-monthly meetings, and our plan is just to continue doing the great things we've been doing, so that's what I have.
Sure. My name is Katie Wheeler. I'm presenting on behalf of Mary Wilson, who couldn't be with us today. In her department, they have done a couple of requests this year to help us meet some needs. One is for an additional truancy worker. 21-22, our truancy program received 157 referrals. And we currently have one worker who is tasked with responding to all of those referrals. So our goal is really to increase our number of staff so that we can have somebody from each school district, or somebody working with each school district, to really be able to spend some more quality time with the kiddos who are suffering from some truancy concerns, to get them back into the schools as quickly as possible. Plans of safe care, some of the stuff that Mary had highlighted from this year, was that they were able to work together with Nurse Family Partnership and hold a training for the physicians of Tioga and Bradford County to really help educate them on what plans of safe care is and the importance of them making referrals for plans of safe care. She didn't really give me any identified numbers of kids that we have served in that program at this point. But she did mention that their success rate is over 50% of being able to engage families. And she credits that with really putting the focus on celebrating the child and taking the focus off the substance use. So.
Sure. For the last 3 years, I think, as part of the plan, we had to develop a program improvement strategy. So we are sent data on a whole bunch of different areas, and if you are below the national average, then you have to take a look at your data, hold meetings with your stakeholders, and come up with some ways to improve things. This year we only had one area where we fell below the national average, which is for finding permanency for children within 12 months. So we had a meeting internally with stakeholders. We also use all of the information that Michelle gathers at the Deaf Alliance meeting and kind of look at root causes of why we think we are falling below in that area and come up with strategies for the next year to try to improve things. And a lot of what we see, it just all goes back to the trends. Children use timelines, we know, don't match up with drug and alcohol timelines. So children being removed and sometimes getting parents to immediately buy into services and start to make changes doesn't always happen. With some of our domestic violence case, some of the cases with extensive mental health, families they need more time, and we need more time to work with them to ensure if children return home that they're safe, or if they can't return home that we have an appropriate plan for permanency. So throughout those meetings, we came up with different strategies and things that we will put into place in the next year to try and help move cases along quicker where we can, so we are within the national average. Nope. Sure. So part of the plan also, we do what's called adjustments every year, where we request additional monies for specific specific things. This year I wrote for 5 adjustments. 3 of them were for specific children, with some of the ones that I talked about where we did complex case reviews that have a lot going on. They're cross systems kids. They're involved with us with mental health, some with probation, some with the IV system, and we really struggle to find an appropriate place. We don't ever just want to put a kid somewhere because we can find a place, and sometimes finding those places that really can tackle all those issues are beyond what our normal cost is for placement, so I wrote adjustments for those. I wrote an adjustment for gas cards. We helped families get where they need to go. Everybody knows in the last year gas prices have skyrocketed, so we are seeing a lot more requests for help in intake and ongoing cases, people needing help getting to appointments, grocery store, those kind of things, but then also cases where we have custody. Our judge very much believes in best practice for visitation, so all of our cases generally have at least 3 visits per week, if not more, and so then we are tasked with making reasonable efforts to make sure parents are able to get to all their visits and utilize their service. So we did an adjustment for that because we don't want transportation to be a hindrance for children to get what they need or families to be able to work on reunification. And the last one that I wrote for is for ESSA, which is the Every Student Succeed Act, which involves anytime a child is removed from their home, we do our best to have them remain in their home school so they have some sort of consistency. We all know schools really see kids more, they spend more time with children than their parents do most of the time, and so we try to keep that consistency. I do meetings with each of our local school district has a representative. We have a meeting anytime a kid is removed or moved, if they change placement, and we determine what's in the child's best interest, and then this money can help to offset transportation costs, because sometimes we need to do special transportation. If you're now living in Westfield but you went to Wellsboro, you can't just ride the normal bus. So this money will help us to pay for whatever transportation services we need.
Did you have any adjustments?
I had 2 adjustments. I requested a 3rd foster care caseworker due to the increase of Kinship Homes and trying to keep the numbers down for non-reimbursement, and trying to help with utilizing my workers to complete the home studies, because we currently only have 1 contracted person to complete home studies for us outside of my unit. We did have 3 at one point, now we're down to 1. So utilizing a 3rd foster care worker would improve the timeliness of the home studies, as well as being able to fully support all of our foster homes. We are looking at increasing our trainings, doing them in person again, trying to do a mentor program. We are working on that as well, so having a 3rd person would definitely contribute to all of the positivity in the foster care unit. I also requested a 3rd LSI paralegal through BOCHE. We had, I believe the numbers were 134 children in care last year, and we had at one point, we have just 2 foster care, or 2 paralegals. And Bradford County currently has 4 paralegals with a maximum of 120 children in care, so we are looking to utilize the same amount so we can also help our contracted solicitor to remain where she is through her contract, rather than utilizing her for different areas that the LSI paralegals definitely can take over.
Anybody else have any adjustments?
Mary did one for 2 additional visitation aides. The visitation program supervises visits between parents and children when the children have to be removed for safety concerns. We are seeing an increase in the amount of visits that we are doing, either through family engagement initiative or court order, where we're being asked to provide more hours of visitation to help keep our families bonded and together. Part of what the visitation program does also is transports, either our families or our kids or both, to these visits. So they spend a large amount of time driving around getting everybody who needs to be at the visit to the visit. So we've requested 2 additional workers, because currently it's all hands on deck and whoever has time helps.
For the implementation year for this year, 22-23, we are projected our budget at $11,198,775 for our needs-based plan. Budget 23-24, we are projected at $11,506,270. I'm sorry. We were underspent this past fiscal year for our budget, but I don't have the exact number because we're still wrapping up last fiscal year, so I don't have an exact number on that currently, but we are under budget. Some of the other adjustments that we wrote for, we had asked for our new vehicle leases for the same reason, the transporting of our clients. And we are also trying to be proactive in our staff retention and looking at increasing our starting salary in smaller increments over the coming years, instead of not addressing the issue as we go along, and then, oh my goodness, we gotta do a large adjustment for salaries for staff retention. A large part of our adjustment costs are our placement for our complex cases, though, because the cost of care for a facility or a group home is hundreds of dollars per day. So we look at where our kids are currently placed for those complex cases, and we project out for the current cost of the placements where they are at currently. Some are more expensive, some are less expensive, but that is a majority of our adjustment costs. I think we hit all the highlights. You guys have anything else?
Yeah. Okay. If you are done, Krista, then we're gonna ask if the board has any comments, or questions. We'll open that up right now for just the board.
I probably have a couple of them. Going backwards, I think maybe. The increase was about 308,000, is that right? The budget year over year. Is that what I heard? You said it was 11 million?
Yeah.
Going forward.
11,198,775.
Okay, and then was there another number, 11,500,000?
He did the math. Yes,
So that's the projected budget? Or
that's projected for 23-24.
what percentage of that comes from the county? Do we know?
I'm pretty sure it's 20% local match.
20%? The permanency within 12 months. So we're below the national average. If somebody's at 9 months, just because we're below the national average, do we have facilities or cases, I think so, I'll just call them cases, in the pipeline that will, they're 9 months along the way or 10 months along, and or or they're 13 months along and they're gonna make it 14 months. Are we going to, how do we meet that?
So the state looks at 3 different timeframes, 0 to 12 months, and then 13 to 24 months, and then children over 24 months. We exceed the national rate, for the 12 to 24 months and the 24 plus months. Our focus right now is for under 12 months. Some of the difficulties with that is the issues that we are dealing with the cases. So it's the parents, their drug abuse, and it's the engagement of the parents to buy into the services and really participate right in the beginning of the case, because a lot of people are resistant to change. So, and they're resistant to go to treatment right away. So that's where we struggle in the 0 to 12 months.
I would also add, we might have a clear path of where we're gonna go with the case, but we're still in the court process because of permanency. If it's SPLC or if it's an adoption, you aren't going to do that within 12 months.
And we do have some that we have reunified that will be for next year within the 12 months. And like Michelle's saying, there's different, even if you have, say, a family and you think you're headed to adoption, there's certain timelines. You can't finalize that until a child's been in that home for 6 months. You can't finalize an SPLC until they've lived in that home for 6 months. So there's other kind of barriers, I guess,
Yeah.
factors that kind of factor in. We also don't ever want to jump to a child can't go home too soon, and what we're mandated by the law is 15 out of 22 months is when we really have to file something. So we always, we're always working on 2 paths. We do what's called concurrent planning. So we're always going down 2 roads, but I think we tend to give the benefit of the doubt as long as you can, hoping you're going to be able to end up at reunification.
Jenny brought up concurrent planning, so those are meetings that we have with the family and everybody included with the family, so the providers and the foster parents, and we hold those meetings every 2 months. And at those meetings, we discuss with the families, this is what your progress has been in the past 2 months, this is where your case needs to go. But if those things don't turn out, this is the path that we're still looking at taking. So the parents are well aware of where they are in the time frame and what they need to do to get their kids returned.
Anybody else? I don't wanna,
Krista, can I add to that too?
Yeah.
I see too, like we have discussed this in the past where we have brought up, what did we call it? The 333 or the 444 to try to, like in the beginning, you see what the parents can do and then you slowly try to help them, get, or I guess
Where they can do it by
we want them to be able to do it by themselves, to be able to get the child back in their home with them. So yes, the ultimate goal is reunification with the parents. And we have gotten to like 9 months where it really those parents have really struggled up to that 9-month point. And then from 9 to 12 months, that's only 3 months to like show some kind of a positive path for that family. So then you give them another 3 months review. So, as you can see with some of the timelines, like our adoptions have increased. So we are seeing more permanency within adoptions, I think, more recently than we are seeing reunification within the last year. So our numbers definitely.
The only other thing I would add is, as a one-judge county, we have limited court time in some of these hearings. If you do get to a point where you schedule a termination, that's not something we can just throw on our normal Tuesday schedule. The court administrator has to really look at the calendar and where there is enough time to put that in. They're usually several hours long, sometimes they're several days long. So that can, when you get to that point when you think you have a direction, that can still be another 4 to 6 months before you even are finished with the hearing and have a decision.
May I ask a question?
with the permanency route of adoption, you said you're seeing an increase in that. Is there anything that you can contribute to that in general, or what do you think, guys? Anything?
Permanency with adoption, I would say we're using more kinship families, and realistically, when they're saying, I'll take the child, a lot of them are thinking, I'll take the child forever, not, you know, like, I mean, when you do your foster care work, you're thinking, this will be my current foster child, and then I will get another foster child. But when you're the aunt who attended the CRR meeting, who says, yes, I'll be the placement option, like, your hope is I get to keep my niece or nephew. So I don't know exactly what 17 she's thinking of, but I know most of my kids are placed in Kinship Homes, so.
And to go along with that too, you have, we have had, and Jenny Fair, correct me if I'm wrong with this, but we have had more adoption contracts, post-adoption contracts with families, with parents this past year that I have seen. So if it's a kinship, a lot of times the parents are like, okay, I know my kid's safe and I can still maintain getting pictures and all this after the child's adopted. So we've seen an increase in that too.
Thank you, I was just curious if you were seeing anything in particular, and that answered it.
I have one more, but it has two parts. And it's the crisis rapid response and the handle with care, which I don't think you touched on. But the crisis rapid response, now is that a set team, or is that, how does the crisis rapid response work?
So it is referred by the caseworker and the supervisor who have the family. Usually Sue does the meetings for us. And the meeting, like she said, is held within a day to 3 days. So it's the team for the family. So if the family has a steps worker, if they have a effective safe parenting worker, they come. But the goal is to have more family and more kin at the meeting than professionals. So we do invite like the schools, we do invite, the kids' therapist might get invited or something like that. But they would still count as professionals, and you're still looking to have more aunts, uncles, grandparents, neighbors come to the meeting. So it's not, the only set person might be Sue or whoever she refers to for the meeting if she can't facilitate it. But other than that, it's whoever has to do with that family.
And then the handle with care.
So the handle with care is a DEC thing, and that is to take care of kiddos who have been through a traumatic experience, usually referred by an emergency personnel. They notify 911 that they have a child present when some sort of trauma had impacted that child in the home. And then a handle with care is issued to all of the principals, daycares, and Head Start that this child with no identifying information aside from a possible name, if they got the name, needs to be taken care of. But the situation that occurred, we don't ask what happened, and they aren't to tell us. And then the facility, so as the school knows to take care of that kiddo for 7 days. They have the school counselor check in with them. It's been super well received by the schools. They really appreciate it. The idea behind it is that kids come with behaviors and you don't know why they're acting up, and you might lead towards discipline instead of empathy. And most of the time these kids need some empathy instead of some discipline. So it's just a heads up. So yeah, we've been doing that for probably 5 years, I'd say.
I think it's one of the most underutilized. Our alliance did take an approach this year to go out to all the law enforcement agencies as well as EMS and fire departments, and we, as part of the debt grant, we bought teddy bears for all of the children that say we care as kind of a trigger thought to the police officer or EMS to, hey, maybe I should do a handle with care for this family. So we try to really step up the outreach for our handle with care program this year.
Thank you very much. But it's along the same lines, the chief. The program where if you pull somebody over that's obviously intoxicated and there's a child in the backseat.
Oh, the debt call?
Yeah, well, how does that work?
So, that is a joint response with law enforcement as well as children and youth. So if law enforcement is out to a situation, like a drug overdose, or EMS is out with a drug overdose, they can radio back to 911 and say, hey, we need a caseworker out here. The purpose of the meetings is so we can respond immediately and get the family hooked up with the services that they need. So we've done this a long time, and we've noticed that if we respond at the same time as EMS and law enforcement, then the family is more receptive to getting the help and getting the services, and we can get them hooked up with drug and alcohol services. Where typically if EMS and law enforcement handle the situation and then they go and call our agency the next day or the next morning, and then we go out, we're met with more resistance, and the family already has a story and no, it wasn't a drug overdose, it was an asthma attack or some other type of situation, and the family isn't as receptive to getting the drug and alcohol services that they need.
I would also say that this works because of our relationships as well, because we have to trust each other. So if Chief Bodine says this is a debt call, I know he needs one of my staff as soon as possible because he's in a situation, he needs to handle the law enforcement side of it. We need to handle the safety side of it for the kiddos. So we get out there as soon as we can. But it helps because we have that like mutual respect for each other, that we each have a portion of the job to do at that time.
And it kind of goes in with our family engagement efforts, because while law enforcement and EMS is doing what they need to do to take care of the patient, we can do the family engagement work and cut down on our placement numbers, because we're engaging the family immediately. They respond to the scene as well, and they're more willing to step in and take care of the kids and make sure that the children are in a safe environment.
Thank you. Somebody else.
Does the board have any other questions for them?
I have one quick question. You mentioned staff retention and looking at different ways to try to address increasing the starting salary and spreading things out over time. Anything else that you've seen as positive steps that you're taking that you think are showing enhancements with staff retention or helping with it, best practices?
So one of the things that we do is we participate through the Child Welfare Resource Center through the University of Pittsburgh in organizational effectiveness meetings, as well as continuous improvement meetings. So our OE meetings is really made up of managers, supervisors, the director, and myself. And we meet on a monthly basis and discuss different problems or potential solutions. Our continuous improvement team is made up of our staff, and we have staff represented from each department. So whether it's our specialized service providers or our caseworkers, each of the different units, because everybody has their own different unique needs. But we really tasked them this past year to look at staff retention and to come up with ways and present it to management. So they are in the process of coming up with different ways, and we have heard some ideas about welcoming new staff, and we also looked at timelines of when, how long our staff have been employed here, and are there any gaps? So we've noticed that where we're missing caseworkers. We have caseworkers that have been here less than a year, and then we have caseworkers that have been here 5 years and more. We're missing that middle gap, so we looked at a retention plan and potentially giving bumps and raises and different qualifications and programs that our staff can participate in to try to retain them during that time period. But maybe I can stick it out a couple more months.
I would just throw into our supervisors do a really good job in trying to help our caseworkers are, you know, boots on the ground, people who are dealing with everything that's going on, have time to decompress and, work a flexible schedule and, just really take care of themselves. So, I think that that's like a huge reason why those who stay do, because they recognize that we are there. We buffer them, we take cases, we go do visits with them, we go do visits for them so that they can take time off.
Thank you both
Yes.
very much, appreciate that.
Staff appreciation activities as well, where we get lunch and we all gather.
Could you speak up a little bit?
We have staff appreciation events too, where we get lunch and we all meet together to have lunch, to have that like great. We did very well for our audit, so we had like a lunch activity for that. You guys came to that, Commissioner, you saw, so that was awesome. So, stuff like that.
Thank you.
And we do different team building activities as well. One of the challenges we had during the pandemic is because we were working remote and people were working straight from their homes. You learn this job by shadowing and just doing the job. So, there was not that interaction with our staff, so we're really taking a focus and making sure, you know, people are in the office and grabbing those newer workers and saying, hey, I'm doing something different today, let's go out and do these things together.
Thank you. I'm gonna open it up to, the public comment. Again, I'm gonna try to limit, 3 minutes per person, so we can get everyone that has comments or questions, answered. So if someone would like to go first. If you could just stand up, because we do have some people on the screen here, if you could just state your name.
I'm Roy Boom, I'm president of Iron Ring Motorcycle Club. I'm also in ABAY, I'm a member of ABAY. Now I was reading through your thing here, and I see about the NIPM program. Have you guys checked with ABAY to have them volunteer to come up and help with that? That might be an option for you.
No, thank you for
Because
that.
ABAY is American Bikers Aiming Towards Education. And they do a lot of my club, which is Iron Rain. And, but you might come up and volunteer for your nipple. I mean, we got members in our club that worked at Eisenhower's Harley Davidson as mechanics.
Thank you for that.
Okay, and I have a question for that gentleman. You were talking about, if I go over 3 minutes, let me know. You were talking about children being in homes, substance problems, stuff like that.
Yeah.
How fast do you act to take the children out of that environment?
Well, for like CPS investigations, we have to respond immediately or within 24 hours, so we're on the scene within that response time.
But how fast do you take the child out of that environment?
It depends on the situation. If there's like a safety threat, then we respond immediately to that. So either we could do a safety plan or we could do like emergency custody of the child through the court system.
Okay, because
So when we have reports that come in, we have 2 different types of reports that come in. We have child abuse reports and then we have general protective services reports. So like Brett said, the child abuse reports are maximum 24-hour response. Sometimes if the report is just a parent substance abuse, that would fall under a general protective services report, and that could be up to 10 days depending on all of the allegations within that report. And we have 14 different safety threats that we look at, and those help determine if a child needs a different placement or not. A parent using substances does not necessarily mean that child is coming out of that home. It's how that the parent's substance abuse affects that child. So we have to have some sort of effect on the child, that the parent is not providing meals to that child, or the parent isn't making sure that the child is going to the doctor like they need to. So the parent themselves just using drugs does not necessarily mean that the child's coming out of the home.
believe you also said sometimes the parents, let's say the parents leave it out and the children get a hold of it. That's still endangering the welfare of the child, isn't it?
Right, so that would fall under our child abuse, our child protective
Oh, okay.
services reports. So that would be, something we would immediately go out on and, investigate.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Who would like to go next? Anyone else?
I have a question, if I may. The 23-24, my name's Robin Adams. Sorry, Sarah. 23-24 needs base, is that part of what the advisory board has reviewed for today? Not the 22-23 implementation plan, but the 23-24 that's due, I believe, next week, a few days from now. Is that part of what the advisory board has looked at?
Yeah, that's everything. It goes together in one plan.
In one plan,
So
so,
it's the implementation of the need based.
so like the 2-year cycle
Yes.
thing, and one written plan that's available to people that live in Tioga County or interested parties. And will the advisory board consider making those documents that you meet on? And that you advertise for public participation, people to bring suggestions, available online now that the website has been redone? Would we be able to see, obviously more than, we don't have copies.
So the drafting is for public display down at the courthouse. And that is on until the 15th, when the plan is submitted, to the state. So everybody has access to, they're welcome to go down to the courthouse and see it on public display.
So my recommendation would be for the advisory board members in particular, would be to maybe look at what other counties are doing with their budgeting tools and their minutes, their advisory board rosters, so that the public knows, like right now, the way the room is set up, it's difficult, unless I missed the roll call to know. I know, but many guests might not know who's an advisory board member versus who's on staff. And if we had a way that we could write or email or ask to participate in helping you develop what your goals and objectives are for the families and the children that live here, I think that would be very helpful, and I would surely appreciate it.
Thank you, Robin. Any more questions? Go ahead.
To follow up on what she said, I mean, I know some people here, but the people who spoke stated their names, but there are people I don't know. So I think it would be helpful if people would tell us who they are. My name is Karen Savage. I'm a retired family nurse practitioner and health center administrator. And one of my other comments is I'm interested in who the healthcare, except for Sue Stickland, with whom I worked many years ago. I don't recognize anybody else here as a member of the healthcare community. So I'm just wondering if there are people here who are representative of medical practices and so on in the community. I also don't know if you're aware that I believe that there is soon coming to the Troy area a psychiatric nurse practitioner. And I know you talk a lot about recruitment, but I don't, in the past I've heard that mostly you try to recruit psychiatrists and things like that. So I'm wondering what other kind of recruitment plans you have that were maybe of other disciplines than the ones you previously mentioned. And my final section, before my 3 minutes are, is I'd like to know how sexual abuse referrals are handled in a step-by-step process. I know how they were handled when I was working because I had to make numerous referrals, and it was extremely difficult. A lot of it because of logistics. People lived in the boondocks. They didn't have cars, they didn't have transportation. Kids had to be transported long distances. It was an extremely difficult situation. And actually, a number of years ago, when I lived on East Avenue, we had a huge sexual abuse case right behind our house. So, you know, I'm mostly interested in that. And if anybody can fill me in, that'd be great.
I can't fill you in about the but I'm sure like some of the children youth workers could. If they can answer that question, I can't.
Did you want to do it directly?
I mean, we can, if that would help, you can quickly go around the table.
Yep. Well, if you can, if that could at some point be available online, that's it, my comment I have, going down to the courthouse, I'm not a young person, and for me, going down to the courthouse is like a half-a-day project. So it would be really, in this day and age, helpful to have, public information available online.
Sure, what we'll do right now, I guess we will just go through the board and state your name and the discipline that you work for. Go ahead, Melissa.
My name's Melissa Parsons, and I am an administrative assistant for Tioga County Department of Human Services.
And I'm Sarah Rice, I'm the administrator for the Tioga County Department of Human Services.
I am Sierra Olson, I am the adult juvenile supervisor for Tioga County Probation.
Sue Sticklin, Tioga County Partnership for Community Health.
No, we'll just stick with
Just
board
board,
members.
please.
In the interest of time, we're gonna go all the way to Kristen.
Kristen Hamilton, develop Tioga.
Seth Watkins, I'm the vice chair on the board.
Jack Ekman, I represent education. And a board member.
Yeah, Roger Bond, County Commissioner, board member.
Jim Bodine, Wellsboro PD, Police Chief.
Thank you.
We have one more.
Lori Roof, Director of Harbor Counseling.
And this is only about half of our board, not all board members were able to attend today. So there are some others that are not.
Yep, we have some people on,
Lori's not on there. She's not on the
Is there
board.
an available list of the entire board online?
I don't post it, I mean, we haven't posted it online, but
I can hear.
we have not posted that online.
No. Is it going to be posted online?
We can take that into consideration.
Huh?
We can take that into consideration.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
go ahead, back there, please.
Yeah, Jessica Burbeck. I would also like the board to consider making these documents available to the public for people who work 5 days a week. It's not really reasonable to ask them to go view these documents. So in the 21st century, even if you can, do it as a, checkout, there's a way that you can check out documents online, or if we would have to email the administrator to get access if you don't feel comfortable. It is a public document, so anybody should be able to see it. But, if you wanted to see, have a better way, we were not able to review this document beforehand.
You're talking about the plan, right?
The plan,
Okay,
yeah, or
thank you.
anything that is supposed to be open for public review, anything that is supposed to be displayed at the courthouse would be helpful for people to be able to actually see that.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Go ahead,
you
Mary.
say it's on display at the courthouse, can you get a copy, like, will someone make a copy for you, even if you pay to have a copy, or you just can look at it? You can't even take your phone and take a picture, so.
Right, I'm gonna refer that to you.
I mean, we prefer not to have, copies made of it because it is a draft and it will change, most likely. Cause at that time, it's not a final, there's still edits need to be done, so we prefer not to. I mean, historically, there were times when we would have copies laying around for people to peruse during the meeting. But we've always asked that you leave it here. So it's not something that we really want floating around until the final document, at which point putting the final document online would not be, and that's not a problem. But historically, that's why we don't send it out in mass, because it's not a final document. But that's, we're open to change. And I'll be honest, this is the biggest attendance at an advisory board meeting ever. So I appreciate and welcome the vested interest in our services, especially children and youth. So yeah, if people have that great an interest in it, by all means, we'll put this stuff online for everybody to view. It's great to have so many people here who have input, so I appreciate that.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Where should correspondence be sent if we have questions about the plan that we've gone to the courthouse and stood and read and tried to retain and maintain our questions in our minds that we might have of the draft? And if it's a draft, that's when things can be changed. But if it's not, if it's not a draft, it's the written in stone plan, it's too late to make changes then.
I'm sorry.
My name is Marjorie Vilas. Marjorie Vilas. I'm a retired RN. And also, what medical component do you have to this plan and taking care of the kids? I know Skip was listed. Dr. Skip, but I understand he isn't able to attend meetings, so who does have input medically?
What do you guys have for that?
For the plan or for our board?
Oh, for the board.
Well,
What
Dr.
medical?
Skip Clark is our medical on the board.
In name only, or, and I'm not defacing Dr. Skip in any way, I'm just questioning. I know he's busy and I'm understanding that he hasn't attended meetings for whatever reason, I don't know. Is that something that's normal that you, on the
So
board?
we always send out like an invitation to all the board members stating when our meetings are, and if they're able to attend. So then our, secretary, or our, the person that sends out the invites, she'll let us know if they can or cannot attend.
So then there really isn't much medical input.
We did send out, just this year, some invitations to other medical, personnel that have not gotten back to us to join the board.
And may I ask how long ago that was? Been waiting 6 months, 9 months, 2
Well,
months?
we meet on a quarterly basis, and I think we sent them out right before our last meeting. So we're still looking for board members. There are certain spots that we have to fill, part of the board. And we sent out some invitations prior to our last meeting. We have recently added to the board. As of the last 2 meetings, we've had how many board members? I don't know the exact number right off the top of my head, but we are recruiting right to get enough people on the board.
Okay, and do you have a specific spot for someone with a medical background?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's not been filled?
Dr. Clark fills that position.
And we sent out other invitations to other medical providers who have not responded.
Requirement to attend meetings by the board? Like, the board members, are they required to attend 3 a year, 1 a year? Is there a requirement?
There is
There is a requirement, yes.
And what is that?
I don't know off the top of my head.
But we can get that information to you, but we need to move on to the next, person that has a question. I believe someone over there had a question.
Excuse me, I don't think my first question was answered, unless I didn't retain it, I am over 60. As far as correspondence, who do you send correspondence to if you have a question, say about the plan?
Historically, there was a sign-in sheet that if you viewed it, you could sign your name if you had comments. So if that's not there, I apologize. But you can send correspondence to me if you would like. I'll take those.
And your name again?
Sarah.
Sarah.
Right.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah.
Do you need my email address?
No, thank you, I didn't.
Okay, any more comments for the public, please?
Mike Burbeck. I'm hearing a lot of people say that they would like a little bit more transparency, maybe the opportunity to give a little bit more meaningful feedback. And I was wondering if you have looked at other counties, and I can see your concern, you don't want a document to go out there that is inaccurate, and not the final document, but what are other counties in the state doing so that they can get meaningful feedback and at the same time prevent a prior version of a document from being mistaken for the final document? So I'm just wondering if you've looked into what other counties are doing, having sat on other boards that have to put out things for comments and get feedback and then have a final document. I think there are ways to do it, so I was just wondering if there's some ways that other counties are doing it that might help.
Well, I think I heard someone say that other counties are doing this, so if anybody wants to send those other counties to me, and we can take a look at it and talk to them about how they're doing it, and then we'll go from there.
I guess following up, could you do a document that just said draft as a watermark in the back?
Thank you. Any more questions or comments for the public, please? Go ahead.
I do. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, you can go ahead, ma'am.
Sherry Stipple.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Sherry Stipple.
Okay, thank you.
My question, again, like he said, about putting the draft out, you could write it's a draft, but if the stuff isn't available for more people in the community, how are they gonna know and how are you going to get their feedback if it's too hard for them to get it? but you want their feedback, but you don't want them to have the information to be able to do.
I guess I have a follow-up question. I'm not exactly, sorry, was that kind of bouncing off of yours? I'm not exactly sure what the point of the draft, so it might be helpful for us to know, like, is this plan open for public comment? Like, does the public or the board have any say in the numbers, or, you know, what exactly is the point of it being available for public review, and what happens if, when so it had been a foster parent for 5 years. I never knew that this board even existed, to be honest, and so I'm not really sure what, you know, what our role is as the public. Do we have a say in things, or is it just a FYI, this is what the county's planning, you know, but it doesn't actually change anything? You know, are we asking all these questions and it's a moot point? You know, I think that would be my question, specifically for this that we're here today for.
So that's kind of the point of this hearing, though, is that for the public to come and then say, we have a suggestion, or we have a thought, or here's something that we've seen in the community, and then that we would take that. So if somebody said we have a legitimate suggestion, it's something we would take into consideration to modify our draft plan if it's something we can do. So that's kind of what this opportunity is for the public to come at this point at this hearing and then give us their feedback. So, but I'm hearing that that if there's a vested interest and people aren't aware, we can do more PR and get more information out there. So I appreciate that feedback. So thank you.
Thank you. What's her name? I'm sorry, what's your name again? Jessica. Jessica Burbank. Okay. You can go now. Thank you.
I just wanted to make a few comments. One, I want to thank you guys for your presentation. You did a great job of summarizing a lot of information. Just some things I want to highlight that I think you should have kudos on.
Should you say your name, tell the people you are?
Oh, Marsha Reese. Your performance improvement plan work, I think you should have kudos on that. You invite the state in, plus you invite in independent data analysis on that. So it's not just you interpreting data, but partnering with the state throughout that. I think a few years ago, your reentry and stability were targeted for your performance improvement plan. Currently this year, I saw that you were well better than the national average and state average and 6th class county average. In one case, you had 0. You had no reentries. That goes to speaking, are kids reunified in 12 months? Sometimes kids are not reunified in 12 months. You talked about giving the benefit of the doubt, working with the family, individual teams. That work shows in your kids not re-entering care and failing on their reunifications. So I think kudos goes to that. That reduces the trauma to the children of Tioga County significantly. And it also goes to your efforts of your performance improvement plans do work. So I'm excited to see how your retention goes this year. You talked about drug and alcohol and hitting the 12-month mark. Diane could probably speak better to this as the SCA administrator, but recovery and timelines don't always fall in 12 months. We support the families through recovery, but we can't force them to be in full recovery by the 12-month mark. So going with the handle with care that Commissioner Bunn brought up is excellent. It allows you to intervene early, prevent the placement of children, work with the police, get help on site, referrals out, and most importantly, reduce the trauma to our kids at that. I also want to mention that handle with care is not just related to children, youth, abuse, or drug and alcohol. I've seen that go out for fires. If a family loses everything and the child's in school the next day, I've seen it go out for car accidents. So whenever a child experiences any trauma, I've seen those handle with cares go out. So the schools are aware that the child has experienced trauma and may need that empathy that you talked about.
1 minute, Marcy. Go ahead, finish, you got 1 minute.
I just wanted the last thing I wanted to say was really DEC and the mutual respect and minimizing the trauma to the kids. That's critical, and you are absolutely right. It is not like that across the state. So the DEC team in Tioga County is truly unique and is asked to speak across the state and at national conferences because it is so unique in the relationship. So I just wanted to highlight that as well. And again, say kudos for the amount of work you guys have done this past year.
Thank you, Marcy. Okay, if no one else has any questions or comments, I motion to end, the meeting. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you all for coming.
Hey guys, I don't know how well you can hear me, it got a little bit loud. We're gonna grab something to eat, do some fact finding. We'll see you Monday evening, Tioga Borough office, Water Authority meeting. Might see you in between then. I will get the prior agenda posted and we'll do that. Other than that, thanks for tuning in. See you guys soon. Have a great day.